Hello, class. I'm recording this clip to kind of demonstrate how to study for this class because I got some communications indicating that the way I'm teaching the class is not very effective. So, I will try to use more examples in class and also try to explain concepts in a more clear way. Um, but at the same time, I also need more specific questions when there are questions for me. In other words, just a question of, okay, my program is not working. Why is it not working? That is not very specific. So what I want to do is to kind of show you guys how to study the material. Um, it is effective for me. I'm not sure whether it is effective for other people. Okay, so let's say we're trying to learn how to um, use conditional statements or loops. Okay, so let me go to my account first. Okay, I can also use PuTTY even in Linux, but I prefer to use my SSH client because it is just kind of easier. But either way, it is really important that we learn how to use the command line interface instead of only using WinSCP to move the files over and then or use another GUI program to move the file over and then just run it using the browser. That technique doesn't work very well in certain cases. And also the CLI sometimes can provide a lot more information than using the web interface. So I strongly recommend everybody to use this particular technique. CD, changes directory. So we are in the root directory right now. It is indicated by this little tilde symbol here between the colon and the dollar sign. It's a little tilde symbol, which is the same symbol as shift back quote at the upper left corner of the keyboard. So we have to change folder to public HTML. And inside there, we have to change to cisw410 for you guys, but I don't have a subfolder like that, so I can just stay here. So now we can just write some scripts. And it is probably a good idea to experiment with the language constructs, the statement types a little bit before trying to use those in homework assignments. So let's say we are trying to work with a loop with conditional statements inside so that we can print odd numbers in a certain way and even numbers in a different way. And this is not even a web page. This is just printing something from the PHP. So let's go ahead and look at a program that might do that. So here's my test program. I call that odd even.php. And then we'll start the begin and the end tag for PHP. Inside here, we'll use a for loop first. So a for loop, and I'm going to intentionally make some mistakes here. Let's say we're interested to print all the numbers from 0 to 20. Okay, so I'm going to make a mistake here, and then we have another mistake here. Now, whenever you use loops or conditional statements or anything that requires, a statement as a part of, as a component of it, use curly braces. Use the braces, okay? Because this way you can insert as many lines of code between the braces as you want without having to worry about, okay, is this a part of the loop or is it outside of the loop? Because what the braces are called is called a block statement, and a block statement combines everything inside the braces into a bigger statement, but it is considered to be a single statement from the perspective of the for statement. Okay, so everything inside of curly braces is now a part of it. So I'm going to say, just print the number $I is, okay, so obviously it's not quite done yet, but I'm going to leave it the way it is, just like that, okay, and I'm going to leave out the semicolon here too, just to make a few mistakes. So I'm going to save the file. Now, once again, you don't have to use VI. In fact, you can use a GUI editor on the PC side, on the Windows side, or Mac OS 10 side. I just need to run the program using the CLI. So to run the program, you just say PHP and then followed by the script name, and it will run if it compiles first. And now this time it does not compile. It complains that we have a syntax error, unexpected end brace on line 5. So what we do is go back to the file. We go to line 5 and go like, okay, why is this brace not expected? Well, it has to do with the previous line missing a semicolon. Okay, so now let's try again. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. And you can see this is an infinite loop. It doesn't stop. So in the case of an infinite loop, you type Control C, and it will stop the execution of the program. So why is the number always staying at 0? It's because the loop doesn't have anything to add 1 to it. So you can either use a plus plus, or you can say $I equals $I plus 1. Either one will work just fine. Okay, so we save the file, we run it again, and this time we go from 0 to 19, which is not what I asked for, right? Remember earlier I said I wanted to go from 0 to 20. So that means, the loop is exiting too early, because by the time I is 20, now I increments from 19 to 20 because of this part, which is the post operation. It occurs after we perform the body of the loop. So by the time it goes to, by the time right after it prints the number 19 is space and then the line feed, it goes back to here, and then it increments 19 to 20, and then it goes to here to evaluate whether 20 is less than 20. Now 20 is less than 20 is false, and that's the reason why it got out of the loop. So what we need to do here is either to change the less than to less than or equal to, or change the 20 to 21 so that we print 20. So let's check this out. And now it's printing all the way up to 20. So that's great. Now we go back to the code. And now we want to experiment with conditional statements. So now I'm not ready to put a line feed here because the next line is going to say whether it is even or odd. To determine whether a number is even or odd, we use the mod operator. So we say $I mod 2 equals 0, then it's even, else it is odd. And you can also see the way I create the conditional statement is I create the skeleton first, and then I go back in and fill in the content. So if this is even, then I say just the word even with a period and line feed. And over here, we'll do something similar, except it's going to print odd with a period \n and double quote. Okay, so let's see if that works. Aha, so it does work. But you can see how this program is not even creating an HTML document. And as a result, it's not really useful as a homework assignment. But it is much simpler than the homework assignment. So if there's any problem with the code or with the understanding of the concept, it is easier to debug and easier to understand. So this is a part of what I would consider a crucial part of learning programming in just about any programming language. Whenever a construct is introduced, you absorb the information from the notes from the PHP website. Now, this one involves the for loop and also if-else statement. So you can use Google and look for PHP for, and the first link here is already what we were looking for, which is the for loop. So the description, obviously you have to read the entire description, but just reading it doesn't mean that it is understood. So the moment you say, okay, I'm not really quite sure what it means by okay, let's use an example here. The first expression, expr1, is evaluated, executed once unconditionally at the beginning of the loop. Okay, so let's say this is not clear, and you have the question of, okay, does it do it only once before the loop gets into the part that is repetitive, or is it done for every single time that the repetitive portion executes? So if that is the question, you can test it because now you have alternative theories of how this might work, and only one of those alternative theories has to be right. So, or they can all be wrong, but either way, so you can design experiments to help clarify, okay, is it this way or is it the other way? So that's the first step, is to read the documentation carefully and make sure that there's no question about the documentation itself. And then the second thing to do is to write a program, as simple as possible, just to test whether your knowledge of how the construct works is correct or not by applying it in a very, very simple example. So if it works, it's not a 100% evidence that you understand the concept correctly, but it is, definitely an indication that, so far so good. But I would do this, before actually doing the homework assignment, because this really is a part of studying. Now, the other thing that we used in this sample program are conditional statements. So in that case, we're looking for PHP, the if-else part of PHP. So now we have the if-else, else-if statements. So when you look at the description here, when you look at the syntax, let's see. So they talk about the if statement, and then here's the if-else statement. So when you look at the if-else statement, there's an if and there's one else. So that is the syntax, which is the restriction of how you can use the keywords if and also the keyword else. And it has an example here. So it might be a good idea to go through the example first and see whether it works. And then when you have a more solid mastery of the concept, you can design slightly more complicated examples to test whether you understand the concept or not. So it's really this is just a short video clip of explaining how I learn programming myself, and I do a lot of small experimental programs to confirm my understanding of the concepts. And when I do not understand something, or when the program doesn't work the way it is supposed to, then I would either go back to the documentation, the official documentation, or at that point I can contact my professor. I can contact my professor and specify and say that this is my code. I'm expecting it to do it, in this particular way, but when I ran the code, it did, it in a different way, and this is the difference, and I don't understand why there's that difference. And that is a much more specific question that the professor can answer with a much more specific answer, as opposed to, oh, this program or this loop doesn't do what it is supposed to. How do I fix it? That is a very general question that is difficult for a professor to answer. But the moment you differentiate and say that this is the expected behavior and this is what it's doing, why is there a difference? A lot of times, by the time you specify the question like that, you already have the answer, which is great, because that's the whole point of teaching programming, is to teach you how to diagnose the program yourself and be able to figure out, oh, okay, so now I have the answer. So I'm not sure whether this is helpful or not, whether this is effective or not, but I'm gonna send this out to you. If you have any other ideas of how I can improve the instruction in class, just send it to me. You can do it by email, you can send it by Canvas, and it doesn't have to be on the forum. You can send it directly to me, and I'll read all of those and see if I can incorporate some of those changes into the future classes. We are still in, I think, week 4 or 5 right now, so we still got more than half a semester to go. So if there's any adjustments to be made, this would be a good time. All right, well, thanks for watching.